was fortunate enough to have a 8-9 year professional football career with 6 or 7 clubs: Stoke City, Cardiff, Hull, Bury, Leyton, Orient, Colchester, and a little bit of Falkirk. Yeah, and that involved a serious gambling addiction that spanned over 25 years. And then on the back of my professional football career, having finished football at 30, which is basically 5 or 6 years too young due to the issues with gambling. So I decided to write a book, which is crazy, but I did write a book in 2013, Red Card, and on the back of that, I set up the foundation, or the CIC as we are, Red Card Gambling Sport Project, and that was basically just to raise awareness of problem gambling and to educate people on gambling harm. So that was my sort of next calling, that was my passion, and that's what I do today as CEO of the Red Card Gambling Sport Project.
Right now, Liverpool have 4 youngsters out with serious injuries, and I just wondered, when you was playing in your day, was you out for a severe amount of time, and did that ever affect your mental health? And what was it like being on the sidelines watching your teammates being able to play? And was there much support back then when you was playing compared to what hopefully there is these days?
Yeah, good question. I think there definitely wasn't a lot of support around, mental health, even around the gambling addiction, what I was going through. There was no support. There was no, discussions about it, etc. And the longest I was out was for 3 months when I'd done my ankle ligaments. And it's an interesting thing with my injury because it just so happened that we got to the Football League Trophy final with Stoke at Wembley, and I was obviously not going to be fit to play. But obviously, it's once in a lifetime. I might never get the chance to play at Wembley. And it wasn't Alan Bourne, actually, it was Lou Macari, who then said, look, you're going to be playing if we can get you fit. So I actually, there's things that you have to do sometimes, and I didn't really understand what this injection was, but you guys would have heard of it, a cortisone, and it's the one and only time I've had one, and I had a cortisone in my knee, and amazingly, yes, I was fit for Wembley, and I played the 90 minutes, and I'm grateful to Lou Macari for that, because I wouldn't have played at Wembley otherwise. And I do understand that, lots of ex-footballers have had a number of injections that, affected them in later life. So, yeah, but fortunately for me, I just had one. But that was the longest time I was out injury-wise. And I think when you're injured, it's like you're disconnected. The best way I could describe it's like you're disconnected from the squad, because you're coming in the morning, the lads are having banter, they're warming up, going out training, and you're just left on the fucking table dressing room. You know what I mean? And you do feel disconnected. You feel like, yeah, you're on your own. So yeah, I think that, the boredom of it, every day it's the same, especially with long-term injury, and you're missing out on all the banter and all the camaraderie with the teammates and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think for some people, depending on type of character you are, for some people, I think it could affect them mentally, because, as I said, you sort of feel isolated. So yeah, so I think there is a conversation to be had around that, without doubt.
You've had quite a varied career in terms of the different clubs that you've represented. What would you say is your most favourite football memory, having gone pro at 22 and then retired, effectively as early as you did?
Yeah, I've got to be careful because I don't want to upset anybody. A favourite memory, there's two obviously favourite memories that I would really point at. Really, one is obviously playing at Wembley, and I call it the proper Wembley. That's what I call it, because that's how it was in my day. I don't like this business about semi-finals of Wembley. Not anyone could play Wembley. That's a joke. So, but it was, it was special that to them times. If you ever got the chance to play at Wembley, them times in the 90s, it was special. So having a family down, at 60,000 there, I've still got videos and stuff about it. Stoke fans are fanatical, so that day forever live in my memory in terms of playing at Stoke and winning it 1-0 with Mark Steen scoring the winner. Yeah, fantastic day. And then sadly for one or two your guys scoring at Anfield. So and it was I'll take you through that, because obviously one of my favourite players of Liverpool of all time is the master Ian Rush. So we drew Liverpool first leg of the League Cup and at Anfield. I was on the bench. Ian Rush scored twice, and I'm sitting there, and it's 2-1. And Lou Macari says warm up. warmed up, and it's 88th minute, and I come on, and and I'm through with Gary Ablett. God bless him, he passed away. But me and him in a foot race, and get round the back of him, and obviously the big question that people always ask me today.
You didn't mean it.
Through Gobblehar's legs.
You didn't mean it. You didn't mean it. You didn't mean it.
All I know, I don't care. Anyway, yeah.
They all count. They all count.
Yeah, mate. Through Gobblehar's legs, 2-2, and those 6.5 fans behind the Stoke goal. Yeah, fanatical. And I remember getting back to Stoke around midnight. I'll never forget it, because obviously I have family and friends. We went into Maxim's nightclub, and it's just mayhem. Yeah, just drinks all over the place. No, it's crazy night. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a report somewhere on YouTube, I think. But the return leg, I started the return leg, and I can't remember, after about 20 minutes or something, I came off and held the ball up, and then obviously then Daisy passed back to keeper, passed it back, and Dean Saunders intercepted, passed it to all the other way around, and Liverpool scored. So I became the villain within the space of 2 weeks. Yeah, from the hero to a villain by giving a goal away. Yeah, and we lost 3-2 at Victoria Ground. But yeah, that Liverpool goal and Wembley are massive memories. And also just one thing about growing up as young people, young players today that are aspiring to be footballers, scholars, etc. Yeah. And I just remember when I talk about not giving up, and I've done what I call the hard yards, which is 4 years in non-league football. Tuesday, Thursday night training, coming back from work, knackered, you've got to go out and train, it's pissing down rain, and all those things you've got to do if you really want to be a footballer, if you have that desire, and I did. And the one thing that stands out is when I got the phone call. We played Stevenage Borough, who are obviously a professional club now. We played Stevenage Borough on a Tuesday night. Stoke scouts came down, and the ball came down, and I got a phone call the next day. I was living in London then. I got a phone call to travel to the Victoria Ground to talk about a contract, and obviously it was a massive news, and telling the family I've got to go to Stoke tomorrow. And I went on the train to Stoke and sat, and I remember getting to the ground, and Alan Ball showed me around, and then I just remember his words and taking me out onto the pitch. They agreed a fee with St Albans. That was all done and dusted. And I just remember him saying, "Right now, Tony, now you're in the big time." And that's when those words stick in my mind. Yeah, amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling that day. Yeah.
Looking back on your career, obviously starting in 82, 83, and not really sort of getting very far into your career, and not being established until sort of 1990.
Yeah.
When you got your Stoke breakthrough.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider giving up on football in that period of time?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because it's I talk a lot about young players getting rejected today, and what happens to them, and it's happened to a family member of ours that got released and then ended up in the street. So when I got released from Bristol City, it was a rejection that I had to overcome. But I think the one thing that I had, which not everybody has, I have 5 brothers and a sister, and a very close mum and dad. So the family unit was really solid, and I had really good family support and encouragement. And I also had an older brother who's on 60, I think he's 68 now, but he was the first one in the family to turn professional. So he signed for Bristol Rovers and went on to play for Lincoln. He's a bit of a legend at Peterborough, scored loads of goals at Peterborough, Errington Kelly. And so I aspired to him and looked up to him, so I had that as well. So it just made me even more determined to make sure that, I'm not going to give up this journey, whatever it takes. So, answering your question in terms of wanting to give up, I've never had that feeling. I just had a burning desire. I had the family support. I have my brother to look up to, the older brother who's already playing down at Eastfield of Bristol Rovers and playing at London Road at Peterborough. And I went to watch him a few times before I turned pro, and watching him play for Peterborough and thinking, wow, yeah, this is what I want. So, yeah, I think that's important when you've got that family support around you, or whatever support that is.
When you were starting out on your football journey as a youngster, what do you wish you had then, which youngsters have now in the modern game?
In terms of what though? Because
I guess in training facilities and
I was going to say. Yeah, I was going to say that because it's interesting, because I remember being an apprentice at Bristol City, coming in, And then the first jobs is it might be the toilets, it might be the stands, sweeping the stands, and then you go in the boot room and you'll be allocated 2 or 3 players, and so you're cleaning those players' boots and all that stuff. And then in the afternoon you do the laundry. I mean, and the reason why I'm laughing about this is because that's what it was. That's what it was to be an apprentice. It wasn't just about playing football. So 2012. Tottenham Hotspur opened their new training ground. I don't know if any of you have ever been there in Enfield.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, it's a state of the art training ground. It's one of the best in the world. Tottenham's training ground, Donkey Lane. And I went there as a security liaison officer, and I was there for a couple of years. And this is the time when Tim Shearer and Les Ferdinand running in the 23s, etc. So just being in that environment on a day-to-day basis and walking around and watching you might be watching the 15s game, might be watching the Scholars game, whatever it is. But these young players, they don't know. It's just unbelievable. They're basically pampered. They're basically pampered. They're given everything, the facilities, everything. They're not cleaning terraces and boozing and that nonsense. No.
Is that a good or a bad thing in your eyes, Tony?
I think it's a bad thing, and I remember what they call release night when they release players that are not going to get a professional contract, and there's arguments break out and parents slagging off coaches and all that kind of stuff. And because parents these days that have got a 9 or 10, 12, 11, 12-year-old son or whatever it is, and they're trained at Arsenal, they're trained at Tottenham, which else, wherever it is, in their mind they think, oh yeah, my son's going to be a footballer. He's at Chelsea. Wait a minute, he's 10. You know what I mean? I mean, come on, hold on a minute. He's 10. There's a long way to go. So yeah, I think they try to invest as much as they can. It's great that parents, can support their young kids, but be realistic. As you said it, there's a very, very small percentage of those young lads that are going to be professional footballers. A very small percentage. So I think they're a little bit too pampered. And obviously the young players now, I think the money in terms of the game now, and this is what worries me. That's why we do a lot with the non-league football circuit and young players and all that, and we've done some with a lot of professional clubs. Is that when they hit 18, wherever they are, if it's Arsenal, Tottenham, Liverpool, whatever it is, they're going to be on automatically £5 a week, and they're 18 years old, and their friends are still going to be the same, running the streets or doing their gambling and gaming, etc. So are they going to get roped into all that, and because they've got £5 a week and all that, start blowing their money and not being responsible and all that kind of stuff? So there are dangers in terms of young players getting so much money so young. I think you have to have, if they've got good guidance, if they've got good parents, I'll say a good agent, because there are some good agents, and if they're properly guided and invest their money wisely, then that's fine. But it's very risky.
Following on from that, Tony, is there any advice that you'd give to a young player who's currently in an academy at the moment that is maybe middling through the system or isn't kind of in and out of the youth squad, to really try and either make it or make a decision to step away? What advice would you give to somebody who's kind of in two minds at that stage?
I would say to any young player that's maybe got a scholarship, 16, obviously there's no guarantee that you're going to be a professional, so you still got 2 years ahead of you. My advice would be that, and I think a lot of parents would probably heed this and probably hopefully do it, is that make sure you've got a backup plan. So whatever other passion or industry career that you may want to go into, have a second backup plan, because there's no guarantee you're going to be a footballer when you get towards 18 and you get released. Then what you're going to do? And sadly for some people, young players that get released at 18, they give up, they go on the streets, and before you know it, they're in prison or whatever it is. So I would say, make sure you got a back plan, have something else that you can focus on, apart from the football, whatever industry or career you want to go into, because it means what that gives you. It gives you a career outside football when you've got released, but you can still play football at the semi-professional level. And that's why I say to people, never give up. It's never too late, because there's a long list, and many of you will know, there's a long list of players that have come out of semi-professional football over the years. A long list, obviously Vardy is a classic example, but the Les Ferdinands of this world, there's loads, absolutely loads. So the opportunity will still be there, because if you're playing at I don't know, it could be step 4, it could be step 2, whatever level of semi-professional football you're playing at, and you're standing out. The simple fact is that scouts go to these games. As simple as that. And if you're shining and you're standing out, then you will get picked up.
Going back to, you mentioned the likes of Lou Macari, Alan Ball, two absolute legends of UK football. What was it like being in the dressing room? Like, let's say you're at a match, it's not going so well in the first half. You get into the dressing room. Are there teacups flying? Is there shouting and swearing, or is it quite calm and just instructive?
So that's a good question. And to be honest, nearly all the managers I've played under, there's a hell of a lot of shouting and swearing. There's a lot of, in a way, I'll call it a bit of personal abuse, because I remember Alan Ball saying to me, "Oh, fucking hell, Tony, you're weak as fucking piss," and all that kind of stuff, So Alan Ball would give me a rollicking. And all managers are different. Lou Macari is a little bit more laid back. He's not a ranting and raver. And Alan Ball's completely the opposite. I played under ex-West Ham right winger. He's my manager, bloody Orient. Bloody hell.
Right.
Come on, ex-West Ham right winger in the 70s.
Goal.
Oh, this is your era, Kev. Come on.
Yeah, don't even go there on that one, mate. I wasn't even interested in West Ham back then. I'm still not interested in West Ham.
Yeah, I cannot believe it. I cannot remember my own manager.
I'll have a Google. Hang on, I'll see if I can find out.
It's bad.
So, what am I looking for? West Ham manager of Leyton Orient.
Yeah.
What year?
90s. I cannot believe that. That is really bad.
I hope you don't see this.
Yeah, I know.
Just to let you know,
another bollocking like the other 20 bollockins he gave me. Yeah.
I've got Frank Clark, Peter Eustace, John Sitton, and Chris Turner. Pat Holland, Tommy Taylor.
Patsy Holland.
Patsy Holland.
Patsy Holland. I can't believe it. Patsy Holland's a bit of a legend of West Ham in the 80s. But yeah, he would give me a rollicking, say I'm going out on loan. Went out on loan to Colchester. But yeah, and it's not just the managers, but there's a lot of there's a lot of physical fights. I remember I was dropped by playing for Bury, and I was dropped out of the team, and I went to an away game with the squad because 4 or 5 players travelled with the squad, and we played away somewhere, and some guy signed from Doncaster, and I was so angry that I was out of the team that I'm now sitting with the other 3 or 4 players that are out of the squad, the chairman and the director are behind me. And this particular player, I'm giving him abuse and shouting it, and the player's saying, "Yeah, Tony, be careful, the chairman's behind you." Well, I don't give a fuck. And I'm just slaughtering this player that's took my place that's playing. Anyway, I didn't think nothing of it. Game finished. Then we come in Monday morning, briefing, we're all sitting down, and Gaffer comes in, and he just says, "Oh, right, okay." There was a very unsavoury incident on Saturday. So Tony and Ian, you two, into the gym, sort it out yourselves. And now this Ian was built like a brick shit house. So as soon as he said that, obviously my heart sank a little bit because I'm thinking, I don't know. So I got into the gym first quickly, just thinking about what I'm going to say before he walks in. And he walks in, and I just said, "Look, mate, I'm sorry. I give it all up. To be honest with you, I fucking grovelled a bit. You know what I mean? Because I was going to get a pace down. But imagine that manager sending 2 players in the gym to sort it out themselves. That's how it was. The Gaffer didn't care who got fucking battered. You know what I mean? That's how it was. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that went on them days that you wouldn't see today.
Since you've been doing your foundation stuff, has it helped you in some way, like heal through what you've been through?
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do have to plug something in a minute, which I forgot about. Good job, well done, Paul. Yeah, because the recovery is different for everyone, and everybody, whether it's CBT, whether it's residential, whether it's Gambler Anonymous, whatever it is for that individual, then that's what suits them, and that's fine. And mine was the culmination of things. So answering your question about what I do with Red Card, that gave me something else to focus on. Some of mine was preoccupied for the last 10, 11 years with building Red Card, building the team, the facilitating team. I didn't realise, because I don't come from a business background, I didn't realise what it takes to run a business. There's a million and one things to do. So my mind is preoccupied with what I'm doing. And then there's the reward, the rewarding feeling that you get. So when I walk out of a school, and I've just delivered a workshop to sixth formers, they get in the car, I just think, wow, yeah, now those guys are educated, and whatever decisions they make when they get to the legal age of gambling at 18, whatever decisions they make, that's their decisions, but they've been educated, they're now aware of what can happen. So yeah, it's a really rewarding role that I do. And particularly that it I'm talking to all kinds of different people from all kinds of different backgrounds. So yeah, it's really enjoyable. But if I said to you about, in terms of achievement, so obviously I've achieved my boyhood dream, being a footballer. I mentioned the first book in Red Card 2013, but my final book, which came out a few months ago, and that's on Amazon, is called My Redemption. And when you talked a minute ago about recovery and how it feels, the therapists and the psychotherapists of this world will tell you that putting your story to print or talking about it can be therapeutic and can be cathartic, and I did find that, because when I put pen to paper and actually expressing my whole feelings and what I'm going through, what I've been through, and really getting that was me coming out of denial, by the way, and the shame factor that went with the gambling addiction. But putting it down paper, yeah, it was amazing, because 18 months later I had this manuscript. So yeah, really important.
I can kind of relate. Yeah. I've got a disability. I'm in a wheelchair. You probably can't tell. I'm in a wheelchair. You can't. This isn't my wheelchair. I mean, I'm in an office chair, but I was born with spina bifida, and through the course of my life, I suffered with big depression, and I had 2 bad relationships which contributed to that. But this year I wrote an album, and I found writing the lyrics to that album a process of release. I was already on the mend and feeling much better after 9 years of depression. But since I wrote that, it was almost like the final piece of the puzzle to lift all that weight off my shoulders. So I can relate with what you just said.
Yeah. And that's why the book is called My Redemption, but you'll see the subtitle, it's full time. And that's,
I'm going to buy that. I want to read it.
Chapter. Yeah, the final chapter.
Redemption. Because I'll have a copy of that.
Yeah,
I'll grab that.
My Redemption. Cheers. Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing about, you've gone through stuff, Paul, and I always say to people that, and I suppose this sort of relates to my faith and all that, is that if you would have asked me, I'd done my first public interview and this was the time where I had to open up and tell all and get that burden off my shoulder and basically come out of denial to my family and everyone. 2013, it's on YouTube on BBC Breakfast, and when I'd done that, that's when the real start of the recovery started, because that's when I understood how big gambling addiction was. It resonated with so many people, and the contacts I got, and I thought, wow. And that's but you have to, I always say to people that anybody can recover from adversity and recover from trauma. Yeah, you need some support, etc., but anybody can do it. Because if you would have asked me coming off that sofa then, remember, no red card's been born or anything like that. If you would have said, what are you going to do now? And then in 10 years' time, you're going to be a 3-time author and you're going to be a CEO and you're going to travel the country educating people, I would have said, well, may as well get the white coats now, because that ain't going to be me. Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing where life can take you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible.
I know you mentioned your brother, and he was sort of aspiring to sort of emulate what he was doing. Was he the biggest influence in your career, or was it somebody else?
That's a good question. I would actually say that I wanted to do it for my mum and dad, and particularly my dad, who's passed away in 2002, because as a 8-9-year-old and growing up in the 70s, and I fell in love with football with the 74 World Cup team with Revellino and Jarzino, etc.
Yeah,
that's when I fell in love with football. But my dad, he would take us, and I've got a twin brother, and he would take us all over the place, to take us to training, invest in himself in our life, and take us to train all the time, take us to matches as we got older, coming to watch school matches. When we left Bristol City, take us on trials, and then when I was a pro, he came to matches. So I think, in terms of wanting to really do it, for somebody, I'd say I wanted to do it for my parents, because they invested a lot in us and made sure that we had our education. Because if it wasn't for our parents making sure that you know, as I said earlier about having a backup and making sure that we did our education. I wouldn't be talking to you here now. I wouldn't be a CEO if I didn't have an education.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was massive from a parent's point of view.
If anybody or any of us is worried about anybody with their gambling or any other kind of addiction, what sort of advice would you give them to perhaps start the process to helping their loved or cared for ones?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Az, because we do get a lot of people that ask about what can be done if someone's struggling with their gambling. And it could be an affected other. It could be someone's partner who that individual needs support because their partner's gambling. And we've had loads of horrific stories about the house being repossessed and blah blah blah. It's horrible. So, you know, in terms of someone that's going through, you know, they might not know it's an addiction, but it's compulsive behaviour in terms of gambling, and they're blowing money and maxing out credit cards and borrowing money off people and all that kind of stuff. The thing I'd say to them, which I didn't really do until I hit rock bottom, so to speak, you know, and a lot of gamblers are like that, is that, you know, and it wasn't as if I didn't have the advice through brothers and friends, careful with your gambling, oh, you want to be careful, you want to speak to somebody, blah. I had the advice and all that, but I ignored it. So I would say that don't ignore the advice that people are giving you if you're struggling, because you've got to reach out to somebody, you've got to talk to somebody, because if it spirals and you stay in denial and you don't address it, then you will lose everything. And when I say everything, that might mean, you know, sadly for some, it might mean that there's no hope and you've lost hope and, you know, suicidal thoughts. So yeah, you have to talk to somebody. That could be a third party, it could be a family member, it could be a work colleague, it could be a friend, it could be anybody, and get the support. And from Red Card point of view, we do one-to-one consultations where we go through everything about that individual's gambling. And from that consultation, that person is referred to our partners at GamCare, where they'll get free treatment. And that treatment could be anything from counselling to CBT, whatever it is, but it'll be free. So yeah, if anybody's struggling out there, and if it's a partner, it's a friend, a colleague, just contact us at Red Card and we'll talk you through the process. We'll get you through the process.
We would love for you to kind of talk about Red Card and actually how important is it to actually make aware of like certain things that's kind of going on in this current climate.
In terms of the problem gambling that's grown, as I said earlier, it's grown over the years, and online gambling is a massive part to play for it. But then there's other issues around gambling advertising, in particular gambling advertising with football clubs. You've got 11 Premier League clubs sponsored by gambling companies. So this correlation and relationship between, you know, the professional football sector and gambling is massive. I know there's a change next season in terms of legislation, in terms of gambling advertising, where front of shirt sponsorship will be banned with the Premier League and the Championship. But you know, if you may or may not be aware, but the caveat to that is that they can still advertise it on the shirt sleeve. So again, they're looking like they're trying to do something, but they're not really doing a lot. And we've got hundreds of thousands of young people that are exposed to gambling, that go to a match on a Saturday afternoon, you know, watching their heroes, and all they're seeing is gambling advertising around the stadium and perimeter fencing and front of shirt. Basically, we are saturated with gambling advertising. But I just say to people that we have to understand the industry we're talking about. You know, it's a profit-making industry. It's as simple as that. The government taxes are massive. So that's not going to change. There's not going to be anything major that's going to change. So with that in mind, you know, gambling's here forever. It's as simple as that. And I did say at the start that we're not anti-gambling and there is a place for it, you know, so gambling's not going anywhere. But the only way you can, you know, stop or reduce gambling harm is to educate people, because, you know, and we go to all kinds of, you know, different demographics and agencies that we deliver to, whether it's young people at school that are, you know, if you've got young boys that are 13 or grandsons that are 13, 14, 15, 16, they'll be gaming. And, you know, an element of gaming is gambling, because if you're playing Call of Duty, you're playing Fortnite, you're playing FIFA, there's in-game purchasing, there's money spent, and young kids don't understand that this is a gateway to gambling. So, yeah, there's a lot of education that needs to be done, and we're at the forefront of that. We do lots of different projects. We're doing a semi-professional football project at the moment where we've done 80 non-league football clubs, and we hope to continue that in the next 2 years, just based on some funding. So, because the semi-professional circuit that came about with some research, and we get to a game. I think it was in Dunstable, and this was over 2 years ago, and we get to a game, we started to do a bit of research and go to a few non-league games, and you get to the game at 1:30, and you know, a lot of these squads are young players. They're 18, 19, 20, and they're on the pitch in their tracksuits, etc. But they're all on their phones and they're all talking about football bets, etc. And you come in the bar afterwards, and that's all they're talking about. So, yeah, managers and coaches are concerned about, you know, the amount of gambling going on with these young players, academy players of these non-league football clubs. So that was a sector that was largely overlooked and ignored. And I know Tabriz is doing stuff with the Granniesborough now, and hopefully we'll link up them as well. So yeah, we just have to keep raising awareness. That's all we can do. And I'm lucky, very fortunate and very lucky that and blessed, because I said earlier about a part of my journey is my faith, because I got baptized in June of 2017, and that's a personal thing. You know, it's not for everybody. Everyone's got their own higher power. Everyone's got their own whatever makes them feel comfortable or at peace or whatever it is. But yeah, I got baptized in 2017, and that became part of my recovery journey. So everybody recovers differently, but the main thing from my point of view is just to make sure that, yeah, we keep raising awareness, because yeah, it's impacting a big thing as well. It's impacting families, because my 5 brothers and my sister were all impacted by my gambling, in terms of bailing me out and going through the stress as well. Sometimes I had to borrow money off someone else to get me the money. So the impact on what we call affected others is something that we really have to think about, because it's not just you that will go through that journey. There's people around you that are going to be impacted.